Here we go. So, welcome everybody to this podcast and also this kind of training, which is going to be put on YouTube as well. So, this is the legal leadership podcast, all things legal, and is focused on the untold truth about what it is like to lead or even operate within the legal industry. We've got the brilliant Ian McCann, who is the CEO and founder of Legal Studio, with us today. And I met Ian about a couple of months ago. I've been following a lot of his posts on LinkedIn, and what I loved about Ian, and still do love about Ian, is how honest he is with regards to legal practice and what actually goes on. He's not one of those people that will bury his head in the sand and just hope for the best and things will turn out tickety-boo. Ian is, to me, one of the type of leaders that we should be having within the sector. And I'm going to throw it over to you, Ian, if you could just give us a bit of an introduction about who you are, your business, and a bit of your journey to where you've got to today.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you, Donna. I mean, yeah, I'll do my very best to live up to that and almost inevitably fall short. So thank you very much for that incredibly kind introduction. So I'm Ian McCann. I'm the CEO at Legal Studio. We exist to help lawyers enjoy work. Now, that sounds two things. One, it sounds ridiculously aspirational, and two, also quite fluffy and right. Okay, what does that mean? The brutal reality is that we found in our experience, and there's me and one of my partners, Matt, who sort of founded the business, and Hannah, who's my other colleague and shareholder and director. All three of us have trained at the time very large law firms. Matt and I, when we trained, were both at the largest law firm at the world. At that point. So I was at Baker McKenzie.
Oh, that was a long time ago then. I'm really joking.
It was a while. Oh, yeah, exactly. Yes, he's round about the Boer War when I was training. And Matt was training at DLA Piper, as it was Dib Lupton Broom. Anyway, various different names. And one of the things that we realized that we really liked was being a lawyer and giving legal advice to clients. One of the things that we all realized that we really did not like was how we were made to do that. And a lot of law firms seem to have what I would call the kind of inverse Steve Jobs mentality. So there's the famous Jobs quote about why hire intelligent people and tell them what to do. Well, that seems to be the kind of law firm recruitment mantra. Let's bring people in and then let's make them do what it is we think.
Yeah.
And then wonder why in that environment they don't flourish. So our plan was to create a space where lawyers could focus principally on what works for them, both in terms of what they do, how they do it, when they do it, where they do it, and how much of it that they do. Yes. And the simple rationale for that is we found in our experience that happy lawyers are better lawyers. And they're better for the client, they're better for their friends, their families, but they're also better for themselves. And the key to that happiness we have found is autonomy. Now, not total autonomy, however, in the sense of you're out there, you're all alone, you do everything, because that's even harder. And most lawyers are used to a level of...
Yeah. So would you say then you've got the autonomy and a bit of a structure around that to help, keep in line with your Legal Studios principles?
Absolutely, yeah. So it's autonomy with support, and it's freedom and flexibility, but with that support and that the infrastructure, but also a team of like-minded colleagues who you can work with as much or as little as you want. And so you can benefit from cross-referral and co-working.
Yeah.
Or you don't have to. If you want to just sit in your corner and do your thing, that's okay. And how we've described it is we've got a lot of support options, and we describe it as a menu. Because the thing about that is, 1 week you might only want to order starters. Might be 2 weeks where you don't eat at all, and in the third week you go and have the full a la carte. That's fine, no problem. Pick and choose what works for you. The only rule is, as with every.
So your model really gives lawyers a lot of autonomy, not just in how they're working daily, but a lot of autonomy over what direction they probably want to take their career as well, in terms of building their own clients. They decide who they work for, what kind of work they do, and you have the framework in place then to support that. Am I right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And
Okay.
and I think the very sort of straightforward way I describe it is, it's your choice as to whether you decide to, if you want to build, increase the turnover of your business. Great, you want to do that, that's fine. Or do you want to take the turnover that you've currently got and do it in 4 days or 3 days or 2.5?
So you've got that flexibility, brilliant.
Exactly.
Imagine being offered that coming out of in your early legal career, compared to sitting working. I was going to say 9 to 5, but that's just a joke. It's not 9 to 5. It's like 7:30 in the morning to like 10 o'clock at night.
I was going to say it's 9 till 9 in my experience.
Yeah. And then being really told this is the work you are going to do. Obviously, you do have some control over the type of organization that you work in, and making the choice of what area of law you want to work. But as you say, it's the how you go about doing it gives control back to people. And like, I don't know what age you qualified at, Ian, but when I qualified a little bit older, because I had I did my degree and then had a bit of a life in between, and then decided to practice. But at that stage, like, I was in my mid to late 20s, and at that stage I just thought, whenever I was coming in to train and in all the other firms that I kind of have been exposed to, that I just think sometimes you're treated like a child. And I just shout back and say, hang on a second, I'm a freaking adult. Treat me like an adult. We're both adults here. That we're not. It's not submissive.
But it's the tension. For me, it was the tension between the two, which is being in some respects treated like a child, but then also being essentially told just get on with it. So off you go entirely unsupported into the wild blue yonder. But by the way, that blue filing sheet on the front of there should have been green. And what are you doing, you idiot? It's that really interesting thing that perpetually, from a psychological point, perpetually keeps you off kilter, because you can't work out what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to pick it up and run with it.
It's psychological torture if you think about it. Sorry, I'm going to come in here with a bit of a psychology on that, because and this goes back to one of the things I know we talked about before, Ian, about good leadership. If leaders or partners or anyone who's given work to anyone else, doesn't matter what age they are, if you don't set out the rules of the game beforehand, and then you try to give someone freedom to get them to get on with it, what you're doing is you tell them they have power and they feel freedom, and then you're bringing in these tight controls. And that internally can cause massive distrust, and leaders don't even realize that they're doing it.
And it's also chronically destabilizing for the individual, and also. And I mean, kind of spoiler alert. It turns out I found out when I was an adult that I'm autistic. And with that kind of stuff, with anyone who's neurodivergent, it's not like akin to torture. It's just, it doesn't work. I mean, a practical example that I will refer to, and I'm not going to say which firm or what scenario, but essentially we were given a job. It was urgent. I therefore deployed the resource that I had available to me, and I got it done in a very short period of time, but in a very resource intensive way. The client loved the end result. However, afterwards it was kind of like, well, you didn't have to do it that fast. It wasn't that urgent. I'm like, well, then where is the line,
The priority.
like, between urgent and sort of urgent, a bit urgent, not really urgent, don't go overspending on this? Like, where,
No
for
control.
me, how was I supposed to know that?
And I completely can relate to that, Ian. And this kind of goes into one of the questions I wanted to ask you as well. Because you're private practice mostly, I'm in house, and these are the same issues within house and in private
Yeah.
practice. Because in one of the problems that I help in-house lawyers do is to set out that infrastructure and structure so that there is clarity on what priority is and what priority is. And so it's setting the ground rules up front. And because in-house is slightly different, you also kind of have to agree that with your stakeholders in-house, not clients, stakeholders. So that is a big thing, a big business thing that all people should be doing. If you don't have anybody who's listening or watching, if you don't have that in place and you're feeling distressed in your job, the reason probably is because you don't have that infrastructure in place. So if you don't have it, you now have the go ahead from Ian and I to speak to your bosses to say, look, the reason why we're probably feeling a little bit stressed and not knowing what to turn our hand to next, and the reason why we're getting a lot of push and pull, and we feel like we're not satisfying anybody, is because we haven't worked out for ourselves the structure that we need to operate within that will give some controls against that. Because
Absolutely.
because as the
And
industry, if you don't have it, it can end up causing a lot of distress, especially for people with Asperger's. I found out recently I've got ADHD, and for me that I'm quite creative in my thinking, and so I will have say a sentence in my head, and then it will go way off here, and we'll go into I'll be in China, and you'll be in London, and we're completely off in two different places. And that really restricts someone with my skill set, I would say, of being really, really, really creative.
Absolutely. And also, it's one of those things where those, I mean, like bringing on, so consultant lawyers, when you say to lawyers, right, you can be in charge of where, when, how, what you do.
Yes.
Actually, you've also got to acknowledge that that is hugely, massively destabilizing as well, because it's a new experience, but also, and it just inevitably happens with all new recruits in our system. And I'm certain this is absolutely the way across every style of platform law firm, which is for the first period of time, said lawyer is extraordinarily discombobulated by the fact that I am not sending them a spreadsheet and telling them about their productivity. I don't want to know where they are at every minute of every day. And actually, if they are, if on Wednesday they've decided they can't be bothered and, they're going to go and do it, that's great. Please feel free. But until you've explained that structure exists and that that's okay and that is what we do here,
Yes.
it does great, and you need to know the rules of the game you operate in, and also, sorry,
No, I'm agreeing with you.
But it's also because the law as a profession. I mean, look, I'm a commercial litigator by trade and training, so the law as a profession, and particularly any form of contentious subject, practice area, has the potential for you to be simultaneously stabbed 4 times in the top, the back, the front, the top, and the bottom by the other side, the court, the regulator, and your own client. So and then your boss, yeah. So there's a fifth one. I don't know, omni stabbing. I'm not sure where that goes. But the in that scenario, you end up under a huge amount of self-created pressure because you are waiting for that moment when someone is trying to shaft you.
Yes.
And
Very unsettling.
It's extremely unsettling, but it's particularly unsettling if you don't know the rules of engagement whereby they may be able to do so. And so it's like, right, how does this work? And for me, look, mistakes happen. We mess stuff up. We are human. It's never the cock up, it's always the cover up. Right?
Yes, how you handle it.
it's how you handle it, and it's also the fact that you acknowledge that it exists. Like lawyers, again, awful at complaints handling, don't like complaints because that means we were wrong and we have to be right because we're lawyers and we're right.
Oh,
well,
do we need to tell the SRA? Oh my gosh, my practice is
all this stuff. It's like, no, hang on a minute. Complaints are an opportunity to learn because somebody somewhere felt upset. Now, we are not in charge of, nor can we govern their feelings. They are entitled to that feeling.
Exactly.
It may not be objectively justified. That's a totally different question.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. How did we get there? Is that something that we can improve? Is it something that we can change? Is it something that we are in charge of? Right. Great. It's a learning experience. Is it someone that is, at the other end of the spectrum? Is it a blatant try on? Well, it might be. But does that really matter? Because we are learning through all of these processes. And also, here's the real kicker. Ladies and gentlemen, thank them for identifying themselves and allow them to move on. Because if they are just if they know the cost of everything and the value of nothing, they're not the right client for you anyway. So be allowed to have the power over and autonomy over your own stuff to go, thank you very much, but I'm not doing this anymore. Not for me.
And that comes with another leadership. I know I talk about leadership a lot, but that comes with another skill and another thing that anybody would really need to do before they even choose where they want to go in terms of what type of career they want, when they've decided that, if it's law, where they go within the law. And the big thing that I work with people on is understanding themselves and understanding their own value system and the way that they operate. Because I find, and I don't know whether you see this, Ian, that especially in the junior lawyers, that they're so keen to satisfy other people, and they put their value in someone else telling them that they're doing a good job or they're being accepted. And that can be quite dangerous. As much as if it's 100%, if they don't quite know their own value system themselves, because they need to know at what point do they stop asking and pleasing to understanding how satisfied they actually are where they are.
We are a profession, right? So we're a profession that suffers in no particular order or rank, with extraordinary rates of imposter syndrome, astronomical amounts of people pleasing, with an extraordinarily large dose of mental ill health because of probably points 1, 2, and the working conditions. And the people pleasing element in your value system is a really intriguing one because as a junior lawyer, you do not get to choose what you work on. I completely accept that. But by the same token, that external validation, and I'm only good if I'm being told that I'm good, it's really interesting. It's why, in my view, people continue to climb the partnership ladder. That and the imposter syndrome. They continue to climb the partnership ladder, notwithstanding that they've already decided it's not for them and it's going to be awful, because they've got to the top of that. They are now a partner. So look at me. I made it. I must be good. I'm a partner. Great. And, and then that then becomes the thing where, and leadership does come into this, which is in that scenario, you then have a choice, right? You've made it as a partner. So all of those toxic behaviors and traits and things and stuff that you had to go through, do you, do what seemingly a large chunk of our profession sadly does, and don't think it's unique to our industry. I think it is almost go, well, it was good enough for me, so we're going to continue to subject juniors.
Resilient, pull your socks up and pull your tight your whatever that is.
Get your big boy pants on and carry on. Right? Okay, great. Or do you sit there and go, well, to be honest, all of that stuff was really shit and I hated it and it did me no good whatsoever. And I mentally quit this job 1,000 times during that period. I'm not sure it helped me at all. Why are we doing it? Shall we try something different? And that is, unfortunately, and I always risk getting pilloried for this, but that's a choice. And an absence of making a choice in relation to that is a choice too. It's just an easier one because you don't have to do it.
Exactly. So what would you say there, Ian, to anyone that is like coming into the profession and they're feeling maybe those feelings that you've said that you maybe mentally quit about 20 times? Because I know I was there too. What would you say from your experience what someone in that situation should do if they're really, really questioning, should I be here? Why am I here? I'm tired all the time. Don't think I'm good enough because Jack or Frida or whoever over there just seems to be getting all the more interesting clients. And what would you recommend for them to do in that scenario?
It's interesting. I mean, because, I can talk about that bloke because that bloke was me. So what I did, which I would not recommend, is I left the law for a period of time, went into an entirely separate industry, and then went, oh dear, what have I done? Turns out I was actually quite a decent lawyer. Grass is not green. If it is greener, it's artificial because they've spray painted it. So
and this weed still coming up through. This doesn't seem to go through.
Exactly. So that then meant that getting back into the profession was challenging, and then I was questioning as to how I could do it. So I think what I would honestly say to people is this: we are in the privileged position as lawyers where we can do two things which a lot of other people can't. Firstly, we can genuinely make a difference to human beings. And secondly, we can have, and there's no point beating about the bush or not dancing around this handbag, we can have a very good standard of living in doing so. So you've got a career that can empower you to have a very good life, and also can empower you to assist others with it.
Yes.
But there's a fabulous book that, and if you haven't read it, or the audio book, I would shamelessly plug it. It's by a guy called Seth Godin. It's called This Is Marketing. And he has a very, spoiler alert, and probably, but there's a simple phrase that he uses, which is people like us do stuff like this. And as a lawyer now, the ways of practicing, the places of practicing, the firms and the values and the alignment of values, there has never been a better time to have a look at the market as a whole. Go niche, go small, go different.
Yes,
go
ALS. Now. Sorry, there's more opportunity now.
There's so much more opportunity, but go ALSP, go for an alternative legal services provider. It doesn't have to be a regulated law firm necessarily. The business of law has expanded, and the options there to find your tribe, and it is your tribe, then that works. Because if your values and theirs are aligned, you've got a higher prospect of happiness.
Agreed.
It's not guaranteed, but it's certainly a much higher prospect.
Again, sorry, just to plug my own stuff here, because I just thought it's my podcast, so I thought I'd do that.
I mean, I think if anyone has the opportunity and right, you probably do. Just saying.
Yeah. So I do a big piece of work with any lawyer. The first thing that I do with them whenever they come to me and they feel either stuck in their career or they feel that they are just completely overwhelmed or frustrated in their in-house job, and they are thinking of actually leaving, the first thing I actually do with them is say, hang on a second, are you just out of alignment a little bit here? So one of the first things that we look at is their values, and we look at maybe how themselves have stepped away from their own value system. And I'm going to share something really interesting with you. A lot of the time that I work with people who do that, 90% of them, and I have got this statistic from the people that I've worked with who have landed here, 90% of them actually realize they forgot their own value system. And they actually realize that whenever they reminded themselves of that, and then started to align that to the work that they're doing, they feel a little bit more happier. They've just got distracted from them onto loads of other things.
And the definition of success is not objective.
Of course.
Success is subjective, and I did a post on this a while back, which I might have to dig back out and then basically rehash. But by objective standards, when I was I qualified into the dispute resolution team of a massive international law firm. I had astonishing. I worked on astonishingly good clients and work. Objectively, I was successful. Now my client base, well, I don't do that much lawyering these days. I do a lot more people management and leadership. But my client base is a millionth of what it used to be. The various, but for me, for what is important to me, I'm infinitely more successful now than I was then, because it's about
By your own standards.
Yeah, and what is success for you, and the other element I think with junior lawyers and senior with lawyers full stop is there is this expectation that we are supermen and superwomen, and that we have always got all our shit together, that we've got 2.4 perfect children and everything is wonderful and life is you're right, okay, with apologies for anyone, that's neither realistic nor is it helpful.
No.
And also things like, for you may only want to do 3 days a week, or you might want to do 4 months on and then take 2 months and go traveling.
Yeah.
So what? Now, that's neither right nor wrong or indifferent. It's just a thing.
A thing that you are.
A thing that you are. And if you can match what you're looking for to what the firm that you work with, partner with, whatever you may be, then you have a much higher prospect of happiness and success. And also you've got that. I mean, people talk about bringing their authentic selves to work. Now,
I hate that word. If I hear that word again, I'm going to puke.
Well, the problem I've got is I only know how to be me, right? And I'm not very good, well, now, having said that, so prior to my diagnosis, I was a horrible masker in terms of, masking is autistic phenomenon of basically trying to pass for human. That's my definition. It's not the medical definition.
I'm not. There is a lot of. I was listening to Stephen Bartlett, one of his podcasts, a few days ago, and he has a lot of people on to talk about neurodivergency. And he said that people who can mask it are very highly intellectual. They're what's the word that I can't remember who he had on, but they said that anybody who can mask is considered high functioning, and you will never know. No one will ever know because they're so high functioning.
And the challenge with all of that, and I as likewise you have a revulsion. I have a real issue with functioning labels when it comes to neurodivergence. The reason being that a high functioning label is used to deny support, and a low functioning label is used to deny agency. So if you're described as low functioning, you don't get to make your own choices. If you're described as high functioning, then people go, well, you can't be autistic. I mean, if I had £1 for the number of you don't look autistic, then frankly I could retire. The other absolute corker with all of it is like,
because you've learned to mask it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I describe it as passing for human, because I've always felt like an alien, and so I've been 40 odd years now of dialing in, pretending to be a human. I'm really quite good at it, but that's not me, and the thing is, and it's the energy that's required to deal with that is problematic. And the energy that's required to remember how to do all of those things, it's hugely draining and entirely unnecessary. And because, essentially, I keep coming back to, there are two questions I always come back to. The first is at what cost? So, not financial, but energy, practicality, value, whatever it may be, health. What's the cost of this?
Yeah.
And then the second one, which is says who? In terms of, right, well, that's how we do this. Says who? And why? What is the basis for that? And once you kind of strip all that back and go get back to the point of who am I? What do I want to do? And how do I want to do it? And then find that place that aligns
to that 100%, 100%.
And I think it's very important to say, and look, there are two things with this. I'm not by any manner of means pretending to be perfect, because I'm not. I have screwed up more stuff than I've had hot dinners, and failure is always an option. And sadly, because we are humans, we do mess stuff up. But there's two things with it. The first is that what it says on the tin has to be what happens inside the tin. So whatever it is that you say you do has to be reflected by the behaviours that you're actually exhibiting.
So it has to be, as you say, that authentic self. I really don't like that word,
but it does. But then that has to be an organisational thing as well, because my main issue is, and
What do you mean when you say organizational issues? Sorry.
So I get into a lot of scraps with people on LinkedIn about this. So if you look at various firms now, you can get an NQ salary of 150 to 175,000 pounds.
Where can I start?
Exactly. So, and my point is, I genuinely don't think anyone can really conceive of how hard they're going to work you for that. And the counterpoint to that argument is, oh, well, it's quite obvious, and you can only do it for a while, get your grounding, make the money and then move on. The thing is, though, burnout doesn't just happen once. It's like once you have tipped over into that burnout cycle, first, from personal experience, you'll go back into it. But also the
pattern. It's a pattern.
And the damage that's done by it will be with you forever. And so I don't genuinely think that anyone can really know how hard that's going to be. But also, it's organizations that say, we are pro X. And then when you get in there, they go, yeah, unless, of course, that conflicts with the other bit, which is making loads of money. In which case, don't worry about X. We'll sort that out next year. We'll just, be fine.
It's like more aspirational as opposed to actually happening. And Ian, just to go back to what you've just said there with regards to burnout, like I know you work with Hannah. Hannah is a coach for lawyers as well. And I've spoken to Hannah before. There's another girl, Leah. I think it's Leah Thomas. I'm not sure.
Yes, I know of. I wouldn't say I know, but I know of, absolutely.
I've been speaking to those guys. All the coaching market kind of get together now and again, and we have a wee chat now and again. I haven't spoken to Hannah properly in ages. But just come back to burnout. You're so right about burnout. There was a report done by LexisNexis in 2019, and they interviewed lawyers at SME-sized law firms. And the report was actually called Stress, Is It Inevitable or Is It a Problem? And what was really interesting in that report was that it came out and said that the lawyers said that they don't feel that they're highly stressed. But then they went on to explain how they were feeling. And the feeling was that they just always felt that they were just below boiling point. And they didn't realize that is going into burnout. Because they were so used to feeling the way that they were, they thought that this is the way that lawyers have to operate. Because we're so highly paid. Because we have a lot of people dependent on us. The duty of care is rammed down our throats, so it's so ingrained in our blood. So if we cut ourselves, it comes spilling out. So all these things that are ingrained in us keeps us in that really highly stressed state that we think is normal. And it isn't, and it's not okay.
It's not, and the other thing is that, and it doesn't have, like, the largest impediment to progress is, but we've always done it like this, and but we don't have to, and the other thing is that, like, there is this argument, and people have this argument about, oh, well, the client, you can't say no to a client, but with a ridiculous demand, because if you do, they'll go elsewhere. Great, off you go then. You go elsewhere. We'll find someone else who, again, is in line with our, because it's about, it's all of that fit across the entire piece. And if someone doesn't want to pay for it, they're not a client, they're a debtor. If someone doesn't want to do it within that reasonable period of time, well, again, that's not for us. Now, that's not a failure. And also, like, it's not and I mean, obviously, I think we have to ring the bell every time. You have to mention Simon Sinek at some point, otherwise, are you really involved in management? But there's the question of, his one of his books, The Infinite Game, and I do like this idea, because
I know you like it too.
On the 31st of December 2024, I can guarantee that the winner of law will not be revealed. There will not be a league table, and it won't be this year for 2024. Clifford Chance have won, and that's not how it works. And there are no points for all of these things. There are no criteria allocated. There's no relegation or promotion. There's no Champions League in relation or European football in relation to law firms. There is just a continuation of that business model and a continuation of that entity.
Well, you will get the chambers kind of try to do that.
But that ranks people in terms of how good they are as a practitioner. Yeah, absolutely. But yes, there is unquestionably a ranking, and people will move up and down. Absolutely. But not as a business. You know, no, like to my knowledge, within Chambers or Legal 500 or any other lawyer ranking or any other lawyer awards, they don't go and ask, how happy are your team members? How fulfilled are you? What's your profitability?
What are they? Exactly. That's a really brilliant point, Ian. I love that. Shall we go to legal? Shall we go to Chambers and ask them the criteria that how they're ranking, and that they should really change it if they really want to help change culture within?
and that's so none of that, and so unless you assess on everything, you can't actually objectively assess on anything. So you have to, it's all or nothing. But also it doesn't actually matter, because it's whatever you want to achieve as your practice with your team, with your vision and your goals and your targets. And if that takes you 2 years, great. If it takes you 20, fine. It doesn't, none of it really matters, because we don't get another go at this one. Life is not a dress rehearsal. We get one shot.
Based on that, Ian, what would you say that law firms need to do? We're talking about law firms here, which probably will be the same as for in-house lawyers, really, to some degree. What would you say that they need to do to change?
I think there's two things for me.
Okay.
The first is sit back and look at any comparable professional services profession. But if you wanted a specific example, say the accountancy world, and look at how accountants conduct business in terms of things like happiness, job satisfaction, automation, technology, IT, client service, innovation, etc., etc. And take a good long look at that and work out how far ahead of us they are, which is an awfully long way.
Yes. Absolutely, yes.
But not with any fundamentally different tools or materials. They're a regulated body. They still use humans. So to
summarize that up for anybody who's listening, would you say that that's sit back and think what actually creates a happy business?
Yeah.
And look at what accountants are doing as a good measure of what good looks like.
And look at it and go, right, how are we going to? Because fundamentally, whatever the challenges are in the market, people will talk about AI, great. People they'll get that confused with expert systems. They're different things. But anyway, and they talk about innovation and various bits and pieces and how the law is going to be entirely bereft of humans and we're going to be replaced by computers. Well, two things. I, for one, welcome our robot overlords. And two, don't be ridiculous, because the judgment questions will always still be a human one.
Of course.
But what is so bad about taking away the drudgery that people hate and automating it and allowing them to do the stuff that they like, which is the judgment calls and the fun bit and the analysis? Nothing. Right. And will that make them happier? Yes. And are happier people more productive? Yes. Says who? Well, Harvard, for a start.
So can I just break that down a tiny bit? But we're coming towards the end now, and I want to break that down, because you've hit something there about optimization with technology. I think one thing that what isn't happening, particularly within the legal industry, is they're not asking the lawyers.
No. Well, that was going to be my second point.
They're off. Yeah. Well, we're single-minded. We're synchronizing. That this has all been done in a vacuum, without asking the lawyers what they think they might need to make them more happier at work.
and how to do because that's the second point, which is like the fundamental thing is, right, and I say this about people talk about ask me questions about reasonable adjustments for neurodivergent individuals, and it's like, right, well, ask them what they want,
ask them what they need,
ask them what they need, ask them how it would be better. So if we can get into, if point one, we accept that there are a lot of innovations out there that we can work with, great. But then point two, sit down with your team and go, right, which bits of this job do you despise? Because there will be some, because it's a job. If it isn't, if you don't hate some of it, it's not a job. It's fun. So there will be bits that you don't like. What are they? How could we lift that burden? Which bits do you think are really heavy on manual processes that we could take that away? Which bits do we not make any money on because you're busy? Which clients do you think, oh no, not them? All of those things. Because ultimately, once you've got to the point where you are managing a firm, there needs to be this acknowledgement that you're not doing anything anymore other than managing. Now, that doesn't mean
that's the same as in-house as well. That's the same issue.
Yeah, but then your job is to find the people that are doing the thing and go, how can we make doing the thing easier? How do you want me to do that? Because I can go out, as the CEO, I can go out and take a tour of every AI and legal service, legal practice management software in the whole world, and they can tell me, look, and I can think, wow, this is brilliant. However, if I'm not going to be the one using it, or the one that doesn't want it, or the one that doesn't know how to optimize it, or whatever it may be, that's entirely useless.
Useless, 100%.
And we're back to that very first point, which is I am now telling you how to do your job, which I haven't done for ages, and so actually I no longer know. Now that's nuts. So if we want to change, then we've got to acknowledge we're a fair way off perfect and listen to the people that could get us there.
Yeah. So and even to add on what you've said before to anybody who's listening, so it sounds to me that, first of all, understand what good actually looks like. Yeah. And don't measure yourself off your own industry, because the industry isn't great. It's going out there and look at what good looks like. There is a document that I saw circulating around on the internet, and I can't remember who it was set by. I will share it in the comments below, with regards to what skills that individuals will need to develop for 2028 in order to be satisfied in their jobs, and for businesses to operate successfully. And you've hit a couple of them on the head there, is optimization of technology, optimization of people, as well, helping them to become the best versions of themselves. You need to have an infrastructure in place to help that. If you want to have a good, sustainable, successful business, you need to give something to your people, because they're giving a lot to you, and that's a really nice trade-off. If they're going to do a lot of hours, you can help them to manage a lot of stress and burnout, etc.
And there's this kind of, and I think, again, I don't think it's necessarily just limited to the law, but there is this point of like, oh no, well, if we spend all this money in training, what if we spend all this money on training and development and then they leave? To which the counterpoint is, what if we don't and they stay? We need to be able to go, we want the best people in our organization.
Yes.
But if they move on for other things, great, fantastic.
The truth is, people don't leave businesses; they leave people.
Yes, absolutely.
So if people are leaving, it's because they don't either feel recognised or valued, or they actually decide maybe law isn't for them anymore. That they've decided, and that's okay, because you've helped them, and then you've given space for the right person to come in. And the thing is, if most of the industry are buying into it, doesn't really matter, because you're going to get someone else in who, and maybe someone else has invested in and grown them to be the right person within your organization.
Exactly. And the right fit, we always talk about fit, but fit is crucial for everybody. But fit is a two-way street, because if you have found those values and various, if it all aligns and it works, then it's beautiful. If it doesn't, however, that is okay. And
Yes.
and there is this terrible thing of going, oh well, we'll just, maybe people will be upset if we said no. Everyone knows, just no one's talking about it. And it's again right back to that sort of cognitive dissonance, that grit in the oyster. That,
and they're not talking about it because they're not asked the question.
Yeah. And who would, I believe that the phrase, and I think it's from the military, is what's called permanent send, which is where someone's accidentally lent on the transmit button on the radio and you kind of get a word in edgeways, right? If that's the kind of dialogue from the top, well, of course, they're never going to tell you anyway because they don't feel like they'd be listened to even if they did.
Yeah, and that makes them feel undervalued. And that's why they're leaving you. Exactly. Ian, can I just say a massive thank you for your time today? I could talk to you for hours.
Yeah, likewise.
And I just think you have so much truth inside you, and you're not afraid to speak out. You've got that freedom about you that I think a lot of other lawyers need to hear and see, to know that they can actually have the same. And I actually think what you do and Legal Studio, the way you've got it set up, does give a lot of freedom to other lawyers to look at a different way, to still keep their profession, still keep all their skills, but move into and have a little bit more freedom over how they work, when they work, and who they work with. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, look, as a passing note, we ain't perfect, and I'm certainly not, and I don't have the monopoly on good ideas. So what we do and how we do it will definitely develop, and I can get better at it. And we ain't the finished article yet, but the kind of at the core of that value, it is about enjoying it and being in control.
And that's where it goes back to that value. So for anybody who's listening on Spotify, this is also on I was going to say Netflix. It's not on Netflix. We're on YouTube.
That would be great.
I know, it would be amazing, wouldn't it? And we'd actually get paid for this. We are on YouTube, and what I am offering out to anybody who's listening to this session today is, if you want to learn your values and the direction that you really want to be going in, if you're feeling that you don't really think that you're in the right role, or you're feeling really disconnected, I'm going to put a link in the comments below for you to book a session with me, so you can start to do your value proposition with me. And thank you, everyone. If you like this content, please comment below, subscribe, and click the like button. I'm not really good at this stuff, but thank you again for being here. The next session is going to be out in a couple of weeks, and that is with James Green. And James Green is going to talk to you about how coaching has transformed his in-house legal career. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I'm just going to